All right, switching gears now, he is possibly one of the most compelling figures of the independent party politics. His rhetoric for the political establishment has defined his career and helped fuel third parties across the U.S. He has taken on Hulk Hogan, President Obama, and everyone in between. He was a wrestler, actor, governor, and military veteran, and now the author of a new book that compares Democrats and Republicans to gangs. Jesse Ventura certainly isn't one to hold back his opinions, and he joins me now to express a few more of them. The new book is called Demo Crips and Bloodlicans, No More Gangs in the Government, and Jesse is in our New York studio to tell me why. Hi there, Jesse. Nice to see you. So let's get to your book in just a minute, but first I wanted to get your opinion on the news coming out today from the Middle East in the wake of this anti-Muslim film. What's your take?
Well, my take is I very much am like Congressman Ron Paul. I think that we should pull out and remove all foreign aid. We should get rid of foreign aid and don't have it anymore, because all foreign aid is bribery. And if they don't like us, then why are we there? You know, that's the way I view it. And it's that simple to me. And foreign aid is no different than what they've set up here in the United States with our political system. It's all based upon bribery. Ron Paul put it great when he said, here's the definition of foreign aid: taking money from poor people in the United States and giving it to rich people in other countries. That's what foreign aid is. And so if they don't want us over there, I'm all for pulling us out, bringing us home, and let them fend for themselves. Why should we be there? What's our purpose in the Middle East?
And Jesse, while the U.S. hasn't seen anything like the riots in the Middle East, we have seen a movement that attempted to take back the streets. Of course, talking about Occupy Wall Street. Now, you, of course, supported the movement. I think I even read a report that you were you went into a hardware store and you bought as many hand warmers as you could get your hands on to give them out to the protesters. Can you talk about the Occupy movement just a little bit?
Well, the Occupy movement, I agreed with it because their message was simple. They were asking Wall Street to quit buying our politicians, quit bribing our politicians. And I agree with that 100%. And every American in this country should have supported that movement, even if they didn't agree with why they were doing it. Because all those people were exercising what is supposedly their First Amendment rights. Instead, they were pepper sprayed and ran off with dogs. Well, maybe someday you're going to want to protest something and you won't have your First Amendment rights anymore either. They'll pepper spray you and run you off with dogs. We need to get back to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and uphold them. I went to court against the TSA. Reasonable search and seizure. It got in front of a federal judge, and she ruled she didn't have jurisdiction. Now, how does a federal judge not have jurisdiction over a constitutional question? That's why I don't fly anymore today, because I refuse to be treated like a criminal at the airport. We need to remember in this country, and we seem to forget the great words of Benjamin Franklin, and that was, for those of you that will give up your liberty for security, you shall have and deserve neither.
Yep, I remember that quote very well. Jesse, now let's start talking about your book a little bit. It is, of course, called Demo Crips and Bloodlicans. Go ahead and explain it a little bit to me and to our viewers, and tell us what you were hoping to get out of it.
Well, they're just like street gangs. They've even stolen their colors. You know, all gangs have colors. Well, what's a blue state? That's a Democratic state. Blue happens to be the color of the street gang, the Crips. The Bloods, their color's naturally red. What's a red state? That's a Republican state. And their hierarchy and the whole thing is just like gangs. First allegiance is to the gang. Second allegiance is how the gang makes money. Third allegiance might be us, the people. We may be third, fourth, or fifth. I'm not really sure. But they are set up and they operate just like gangs. They acquire turf. If any third entity ends into the turf, the two gangs will team up to expel that third entity or absorb that third entity. So the mindset is identical to the street gangs, the Crips and the Bloods, and I apologize to the Crips and Bloods for having to do that to them.
And Jesse, in your book, you said that the third-party movement tends to start whenever there is a crisis in the country. Do you believe that that was the case with the Occupy movement?
It could be, but I no longer support the third-party movement. I now support the abolishment of all political parties. And I have pretty good people that stand behind me. In the book, if you read my chapter 2, you'll find that George Washington, the father of our country, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams all agree with me that parties should not take over governments. And apparently we're not listening to them because we have the two-party dictatorship here that completely has taken control of our government. And in this upcoming election, I got news for you. It doesn't matter who gets elected. You are still going to have the same government going forward as you have right now.
In fact, Jesse, I think in your book you wrote that if a third party was to come into power, it would have to require a lot of money, and that you would see not a two-headed monster, but a three-headed monster. But back in 2008, we saw the party movement really gain, the third party movement, Tea Party movement, excuse me, really gain steam. They, of course, had powerful financial backers. You even said in your book that you think it was co-opted by billionaires. Now, they're still going strong, and the U.S. Is changing its political discourse because of that. Now, that hasn't happened as much with the OWS movement. It's changed the dialogue, yes, but changed the policies, maybe not as much. So is money the only option?
Well, money's what drives it all. You know, they've created a system now. The worst thing that ever happened was them, the Supreme Court, saying corporations have the same rights as individuals and money is free speech. Do you realize China could control an election here now? All they have to do is form a corporation and they can funnel all this money into these super PACs. And the real bad thing about it, I'm not necessarily opposed to all the money, but there should be full disclosure. Where does the money come from? And they don't even have to do that now. So a foreign country could literally control the elections of the United States of America by pumping money, and that used to be illegal here. But now, thanks to our Supreme Court, it isn't anymore.
And Jesse, actually, in your book, I know that you kind of made a funny joke about the fact that President Obama and Mitt Romney and all the other candidates might as well be wearing NASCAR suits. We actually made a graphic just for you to show you what our artistic interpretation of this is. So it's Mitt Romney and Barack Obama in their little NASCAR suits with all their sponsorship stickers. So you've been an you wrote in this book that you now no longer support third parties. I know that you supported Ross Perot not once but twice in the presidential elections, and now you're backing Gary Johnson. But in your book, you said you don't even support third parties anymore. So are you sticking with Gary Johnson?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sticking with Gary Johnson. He was governor of New Mexico when I was governor of Minnesota. I have to vote for someone because I do vote in every election. I just never vote for Democrats and Republicans. And you know, they always tell you if you vote for a third entity, you're wasting your vote. I'd like to reverse that thought and have people understand if you vote for a Democrat or Republican, you've wasted your vote because you're going to get the same government no matter who wins over there. And I'm supporting Governor Johnson. I urge people, if they truly want to strike out against government, if they're angry against government like the polls say that they are, then do it at the ballot box because that's the only thing we have left. Support Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate for president.
But Jesse, I mean, what you're saying is in your book, you're saying, I don't believe in third-party politics. I believe you called it a no-party system. But now you're saying you support third party.
No, I'm saying I have to vote for somebody and the parties are still there. I'm calling for the abolishment of all parties. Well, that's not going to happen overnight. But there's one thing we could do that would help immensely, and even at the local level. Why do we allow party names on an election ballot? Why not just the name of the candidate? That's done to support the parties because you don't even have to know who the candidates are. If you're conservative, you walk in and look for the name Republican. If you're liberal, you walk in and look for the name Democrat. Take those names off the ballot, Republican and Democrat or any party, then it becomes inherent for the voter to educate themselves. What does Joe Johnson stand for? Now, parties can still endorse a candidate the same way the teachers union endorses, the firemen and nurses union might endorse, but just get those party or gang names off a ballot. That would be a huge first step. You're not going to accomplish this overnight. This could take decades, but we need to start working towards that end, in my opinion.
And Jesse, I know that you have also spoken out against voter ID laws and a lot of other things. We're going to have to get you your opinions later. Jesse Ventura, thank you so much for joining us.